What should you realistically prepare for when moving to Madrid, Spain? For those of you who don't know me, my name is Danielle. I've been living in Madrid, Spain for almost 2 years now. And in this video, we're going to be hitting on 9 of the most important things you should be aware of if you're planning on making a move to Madrid. As someone who's already gone through the process and had to learn all of these along the way. And I'm saying this to you as an American, and I am mainly speaking to the Americans here, because for some Europeans watching this, some of these things might be obvious to you, but for us, we're not very used to it. So let's get into it. Number 1, the days are divvied up by the meals. Something you'll come to understand about Spanish culture very soon, probably the second upon arrival, is that everything is revolving around the meals, and meals are very important. So for example, me as an American will typically have my lunch around 12, and I've had to get used to the fact that some of my Spanish friends will literally text me good morning an hour after I've had lunch because they're either just finishing breakfast or they haven't had lunch yet. And this could totally just be a niche thing that just happens within my friend group, but it's so funny to witness because the way that I was raised, it was, okay, after the clock strikes 12 p.m., it's now the afternoon, and only until around like 6, 7, 8 p.m., then you can say goodnight. But between the 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. window, that's considered morning. 12 to 6, 7, 8, that's considered afternoon. And then anything after 8 until you go to bed is night. But out here, it just seems to be revolving around the meals, and you really do get a sense for how much they care about their mealtime. Which brings me to number 2. You need to be a social person. Otherwise, you're probably not going to make it here very long. Meals are very important, especially when you're first meeting a new Spanish person. They're not just going to meet someone for lunch for 90 minutes. That's like the warm-up, you know? You're still getting started into the conversation. So if you're like me and you're the type of person where your social battery is completely drained after 2 hours of speaking with someone, you're gonna either need to make coffee your new best friend, change your mentality, or get used to not having many close Spanish friends. Because every single Spanish person that I've ever met has never had this sort of internal clock of like, okay, I've been speaking to this person for 3 hours. Maybe we should call it a day. No, it's like, oh, we've only been speaking for 3 hours? Yeah, we still have time. And a lot of this happens over meals in particular, because we do also have this tapas culture out here, because you're not necessarily going out to a restaurant with the intention of, let me go gorge my face with food and then get back to the office. You're going with the intention of, okay, let's have a nice conversation with each other, pick and choose out a few really wonderful dishes, and over the course of 4 hours, we're gonna talk over 3 dishes. And this is normal. This is part of their routine. And it's great, and I absolutely love it, because how wonderful is it to have people that want to be in your company for more than 10 seconds without getting bored of you? But it's also something that you really do have to mentally prepare for, because depending on the kind of culture that you're coming from, if you're used to being on your grind, if you're used to having something to do, then having a plan like this can completely throw a wrench in your day. Or you're gonna have to explain to the person beforehand, hey, it's gonna have to be a quick one. And I know that this may sound weird, but when I first moved out here, I was asked by my boss, Danny, why does it always feel like you're trying to get away? I was always trying to get away because I wasn't social enough to be in these very long conversations, because I just did not have the mental capacity for them. I was always so used to the American standard of, okay, I'm gonna meet you for 30 minutes minimum, and then an hour, maybe an hour and a half maximum, and if you're really, really important to me, I'll even give you another hour. But that's being generous. Because during our working days, we have other things to do. We have our priorities, and our priorities are always work. But out here in Spain, they're like, no, we're still having lunch. We're still talking. It's only been 3 hours. Why are you trying to leave? Do you not like us? Is this conversation not exciting to you? Do you want to bring up another topic? And they'll wait for you to bring up another topic because they want to enjoy the conversation. And as I'm saying it, I know that it sounds like, oh my gosh, what a luxury. Why would you want to get away from that? But if you're very used to something different, like for example, how I was, in the moment, I wasn't ready for it. I thought they were insulting me. I thought they were mocking me. I thought they were like, oh, you're not good enough to know our conversation? What do you want to talk about then? That's how I interpreted it. It was completely my bad. It was completely my own wrong. But that's how I interpreted it. So for so long, I wasn't able to really get into society because I wasn't social enough to understand that this is just their normal. So it's something that I really, really feel the need to stress to anyone who's trying to look to move to Madrid, because it is something in some way, shape, or form that you're gonna have to deal with. Number 3, dating is a lot more casual. I know that I've already talked about this before, so I'm gonna keep the point brief, but it does sincerely need to be said, because if you are coming from the American mentality like myself, or if you're coming from a more practical, logic-based kind of culture, then the style of dating out here in Spain, specifically in Madrid, because that's where I am, is very different from anything you've probably dealt with before. To give you an example, out here in Spain, they're not looking into you past your profiles on social media. They're not doing deep work to try to figure out who you are or what you're about, because they're not thinking about, is this a person that aligns with my professional goals? Is this a person that aligns with my personal goals that I have for myself in the future and the family that I want to create? They're thinking, oh, could this be a person that I could have a cool conversation with? They're a lot more present and in the moment. And at least speaking for myself personally, so this could just be an opinion and you can disregard it, but I was always raised with the general knowledge that if you're going on a date with someone, it's because you see them as a compatible partner for the kind of future that you want to build. So the second that I'm meeting with someone, I'm thinking, what's your job? Is it sustainable for the life that I want to live? What are your passions? Is it compatible with what I want to do with my life? What is your family dynamics like? And is that going to play a role into our relationship? What kind of family do you want? Because I want kids. Do you want kids? Is this something that we can even consider? All of this is happening on the first date. And it may sound super extreme. It may sound like, Danny, you're a full nutcase, like you are mental. But that was how it was. Every relationship that I had in the States, which were a resounding 3, they were all at least 1 year long. Why? Because we dated with intentionality. We either liked what the other person was about, we felt they were aligned in the kind of interests that they had and what they wanted to pursue for themselves, in terms of like, are my aspirations compatible with your aspirations? Are my qualities enhancing your qualities? And together, do we elevate each other? Is what I want to do in this life conducive to helping you create what you want to create in your life? Because if so, then we can help each other and we can grow together, or you're going to be holding me back, or I'm going to be holding you back, and there's a disconnection here. And I don't know if it had a role to play in it, but of those 3 relationships, 2 of them were Jewish. So we were always very much into this mentality. And the one that wasn't was Christian, but was raised with the idea of you need to be loyal. If we do this 100%. We're not half-assing it, and we are in it for the long haul. And the only reason that that relationship ended was because I literally moved countries. And the reason I say this is because there are certain calculated decisions that we make because we're thinking long-term. We're not thinking about, oh, what do you want to have for dinner? Do you like this restaurant? What was something exciting that happened to you this week? We don't care. There are more important things at stake. And out here in Spain, the dating culture is just not that. And in some ways, this is really wonderful because then you don't have to have this pressure of any expectations, either that you need to meet for them or that you feel like they need to meet for you. You can kind of just go out, meet a cool new person, enjoy your time, see if it leads anywhere, and if not, you have a cool new friend. But in other ways, it is kind of bad because if you want to have something more sustainable, if you want to have something more long-term, then this sort of air of not really having consideration for commitment or having these deep conversations in which you're talking about the level of connection you feel for the other person, then that can be quite challenging and it may not be fit for everyone. Number 4, everything regarding government takes hysterically long. So get started early. Dealing with bureaucracy is something I've talked about before, and it remains true to this day. It is a bitch. I don't care which way you want to cut it. I don't care which light you want to put it under. I don't care what kind of microscope lens you're using. No matter which way you're looking at it, it takes forever. It is the most inefficient process that I find hysterical because in comparison to the US, it moves so much slower and there's no real sense of urgency until then they ascribe urgency. So if you need a specific document, if you need to have a certain paper, if you're like me and you applied for a visa, get started early. That is one of the most important things you need to know about coming to Madrid, maybe to all of Spain for that matter, but get started early. Because in the US, at least in my experience, things take a long time because of the queue. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of things that need to get done. They literally do not have the capacity to do something right this second. But in Spain, there is this general knowledge that because people can't really get fired once they're in and working for the government, there isn't this urgency for them to do their job to the full capacity that they're able because they're not incentivized to do so if they do actually do it. It's just more work for them, which then creates more paperwork, more stress, and then more work to compound because there's always going to be someone that needs help. So it's just something to be aware of. Number 5, nightlife starts on Thursday, and if you're young, it ends in the morning. This kind of plays along with the social point that I made before, in the sense that you need to be kind of an outgoing butterfly, because if you do want to have a social life and fully experience everything that the city has to offer, know, from the insider's point of view, the weekend starts on Thursday. It doesn't matter that there's Friday, there's Thursday night. And a lot of clubs are booked and there's really good energy on specifically Thursday nights. Yes, Friday is amazing, Saturday is great, Sunday not so much, and no one's really going out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But you best believe on Thursday, there's gonna be something good going on. And if you're in the younger age range, meaning that you're in between the ages of, let's say, 20 to 26, 27, your night is not going to end until probably 7 or 8 a.m. And that's also being generous and not taking into account the fact that there are after parties. Like, for example, I have a Belgian friend who has a Spanish boyfriend, and I remember talking to her one day and she was like, girl, I am so tired. The party started on Friday. It was my boyfriend's friend's birthday, and it literally didn't stop until Sunday night. We were partying the entire time. I don't think anyone slept. It was chaos. And this was, by the way, not during the summer. This was on a random weekend in November. Like, it doesn't matter when. Expect there to be this kind of rile and rowdiness, especially when it comes to nightlife. And if you do want in on the social scene, then mentally prepare yourself for the long nights ahead. Number 6, Spanish people are very warm when you first meet them. This for me was probably one of the first apparent culture shocks that I had to experience, because anyone that's ever been to Spain or knows really anything about Spanish culture knows that when you first meet someone, you go, hi, mwah, mwah, ¿qué tal? And then you start talking. I, on the other hand, did not know anything about Spanish culture when I first moved out here and didn't mentally prepare myself for this, because I only grew up with the American way of, hi, how are you? My name's Danielle, what's yours? I was very much like an interrogator in that sense. I kept it professional, I kept myself at an arm's length, and I asked the questions that would let me know what your status was like immediately. I didn't ask you how you were. I said, hi, my name is Danielle, what's yours? Where are you from? What do you do? And out here in Spain, it's just not like that at all. And if you're having a bit of trouble kind of understanding why this is such a culture shock, I think one of my Dutch friends put it the best. Because the Dutch are kind of like Americans in this regard. They're very much like, hi, how are you? When you first meet them. And what my Dutch friend said kind of put it together in a nice light, which is, I don't know if I like you when I first meet you. I don't know if I want to kiss you. I don't know if I want to hug you. So why would I start our relationship off on those pretenses of already having the confidence to hug you and to kiss you? Because especially in Spain, if you're a girl, for example, meeting another girl, you don't just have to do the mwah mwah, you can do the hug and the mwah mwah, meaning that you are fully getting up close and personal when you first meet someone, and this is seen as completely normal. So if you are like me and you are a bit more reserved, you're not really used to people touching you, this is something that you might have to mentally prepare yourself for, because me at least, I was not prepared for the amount of people that were touching me, that were trying to kiss me. It was very weird. I grew up very conservative in my nature. I didn't go out and literally look for ways to physically touch people, and it was just a very startling difference to have to get used to, because I was always used to being very comfortable with my personal space, good with myself, having my bubble around me, and immediately upon touching down in Spain, that was popped. And this kind of leads me into number 7, which is, even though they do have this culture, this aura of being super friendly, super sweet, don't be too nice. And this is probably one of the weirder pieces of advice that I'll give you, but especially as an American, this is a lesson that I had to learn the hard way. So I hope that it helps you so you don't have to go through this. But when I first moved out here, I was very well aware of the fact that I didn't know a lot about Spanish culture. I didn't know the language. I had no friends when I first moved out here. None of my family was out here. I was a little girl completely alone trying to figure out the city. And any time that I ever felt insecure about my place in society in the States, I would revert the equivalent of a little lamb. I'd be like, hi, how are you? So great to talk to you. Hey, can I ask you a quick question? I would try to be the most disarming version of myself so that you would feel like you were in the place of authority and therefore incentivized to talk to me, because it would help your ego. Yes, it sounds super screwed up, but it worked like a charm in the States, okay? And so I immediately did that when I first came to Spain. If I didn't know something, or if I needed help, like if I needed directions, or I was looking for something in a grocery store, I would literally go up to the people and be like, hi, I'm so sorry to bother you. Do you know where X is? And I would say it in that tone. I would lower it. I would make it sound pretty. I would slow down my pace. And while yes, this is very nice if you want to do a meditation, it's not what you want for every day. And especially if you are a normal person, this gets old and really annoying really quickly. And what would end up happening is that people would either roll their eyes at me, wouldn't help me, or would just make the experience that I was having a little less enjoyable. Meaning that, for example, if I would go out to a restaurant and I use that kind of tone, I would notice that our service was very slow. Or if I would go out to a bar, I would notice that the free little things that they would give to other people, they wouldn't replenish our stock as quickly or at all as they did other people, unless we specifically asked. And it was just these microaggressions that I was experiencing more and more often, and I had to ask my Spanish friends, like, hey, Why does it feel like people don't like me when I'm literally just being so nice to them? And they just looked at me like, Danny, you sound like a condescending weirdo. Stop doing that. And I had to literally look at the facts of the matter that in the US, directness we sometimes mistake for rudeness. While, for example, in Spain, and especially in the Netherlands and Germany, if you've ever been, directness is considered realness. Because why are you not talking to me like a person? This is how I normally talk in my day-to-day speech. I'm not putting on a voice for the camera. This is it. This is real right now. So I'm talking to you like someone who's worthy of the respect of getting spoken to like a person. And especially out here in Spain, you're not considered rude if you talk like this. You're considered real. But in the States, for example, if I were to go up to someone working at a cafe or working in a grocery store, and I'd be like, hey, where's the milk? They'd be like, rude? Go get it yourself. I'm not helping you. Because we just interpret it differently. And obviously, yes, my tone, my body language, my facial expressions, these all have a role to play in it. But generally speaking, mentally prepare yourself if you are a people pleaser, if you are an American especially, that if you're too nice, you're actually too rude. Number 8, dealing with the contract process of getting an apartment is very different than in the States. Everyone is going to deal with a different kind of real estate agent. Everyone is going to deal with a different kind of person. In Madrid specifically, there are some people that will be happy to show you an apartment, show you all around, ask you a lot of questions, but don't like it if you ask them a lot of questions. A great example of this is there was an apartment that I was touring recently, and the guy asked me 1,000,001 questions about myself. He was asking me what I did for work, how much money I was bringing in, all things that I could understand why someone would want to ask me that. They want to make sure that I can consistently pay the rent and I would be a good tenant, and I was someone that it made sense renting out to. But the second that I asked him questions about the place, he started looking at me like, yeah, we can get into that if you get the place. He didn't want to answer them. And this was the same thing for a couple of other real estate agents that I was speaking with, and it was the same thing when we got to the contract part of the whole process. One of the apartments that I was super interested in, I asked, hey, can I see a proper contract so I know exactly what I'm signing up for? And he said, why? He literally asked me why. He was like, you know that you have the money to pay for it, you can prove that you have the money to pay for it, buy it, and then we give you the contract afterwards. In his mind, he didn't want to do all that extra work of putting together an entire contract for someone who might say at the very end, you know what? No, I'm good. Because then it would have just been wasted time. But in the US, it's the exact opposite. Me, as the potential buyer, I'm allowed to ask you any question I want. I can take up as much time of your day that I want. I can ask for a contract. I can do so much digging into what this specific place entails and what I'm walking into potentially without ever having to put down a single penny. There's no expectation of a commitment on my end from you, even if you do all of this work for me. Why? Because it's just generally known that you can ask questions, you can do your due diligence. You, as the real estate agent, need to sell me. I don't need to sell you on me. And that's the main difference between here and in the States, at least how I've experienced it. Because in the States, I always knew that I held the cards. Yes, there of course were other buyers, but I held the cards in that meeting. If I knew that I was coming in with a certain amount of money, a certain amount of prestige to my name, a certain amount of confidence that they wouldn't have to do this process again relatively soon because I'd be staying there long term, I knew that I was a very attractive potential client. But out here in Madrid, the tables are kind of turning in the sense where real estate agents don't really feel the need to sell themselves because they know that there are wealthy expats or immigrants that are looking to come and will happily pay whatever the price is in order to just get an apartment so they're not homeless. So of course there are a lot of socioeconomic factors that go into this whole process, but please prepare yourself for this change if you are planning on coming out to Madrid. And number 9, the last thing that you should prepare yourself for, if you are looking to come here as a potential student, know that there are no food or dorming plans. This is something that for me, I was not ready to experience. I've already talked about this before at length, but it really does need to be said again. If you are coming out here for studies, you need to prepare yourself for the fact that you need to take care of your own food and take care of your own accommodations. It's not like in the US where they say to you, if you get accepted to a university, hey, these are the on-campus dorming options we have, these are the food plans we have, these are the bundles we have, you take your pick. When I went to the University of Pittsburgh, I had all of that. I was able to, as a freshman, have unlimited entry to a buffet that was underneath my dorm, have access to a gym that was also in my dorm, and have access to the on-campus restaurants that were all part of my meal plan. I didn't have to worry about anything except for just just showing up to classes and doing well in said classes as a freshman. But out here in Madrid, that's not the case at all. You have to go out and find your own apartment, or specifically ask the university if they have any options for you. You have to do the same with your food, same with any exercise that you want to do, like getting a gym membership, for example. And it's just a very different way of starting your life that I do think you should be prepared for. Because yes, as Americans, we do have this sense of like, we need to be independent, we need to be self-reliant. But that's really put to the test when you apply to university out here in Spain, because you do literally have to be your own adult. And you're not really coddled by the school system until you graduate. Because at least how I experienced it in the States, I was coddled. I was given every amenity that I could ask for. And yes, even though it came with a really hefty price tag, I didn't have to worry about the extra variables. I could just say, you know what? I have everything that I could ever need right here. I don't necessarily need to leave the university campus if I don't want to. And I could spend these next 4 years working on my academics, working various odd jobs, applying for internships, applying for jobs, and just getting my life started immediately from the get-go, because I don't have to worry about where am I going to get food? Where am I going to go to live? Am I going to be able to exercise enough? All of these other variables. Even co-working spaces were provided. So I hope no matter where you're watching this from, this gives you a little bit more insight as to what you can expect if you are planning on making a move to Madrid. And if you are Spanish and you're watching this, let me know your thoughts on all of what I just said. This is my point of view as an American, so of course I'm very biased. But either way, thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you again soon.